Hello, everyone. I'll give you a couple minutes to get settled and get your audio working, make sure you can hear me. All right. While you are getting settled, if you want to go ahead and in the chat, just give me an A, B, C, or D wherever you are at. If you've started to add accessibility, if you haven't started or you have, are you creating new decks that have accessibility, or you have ideas, but you're not sure what to do yet? Tonight's webinar is all about alt text. So we are going to make sure that any question is answered about alt text. We are going to pause on any other questions that aren't related to alt text just for the sake of time, just to make sure that we have enough time to get through all the questions, in hopes that we can just give you as much information as possible and get all of that done. If for some reason you need to log off, this meeting will be recorded and emailed out and also put on our YouTube channel for you to watch later on at your own pace and your own speed. So we're so excited for you to be here. I see a couple things coming in the chat. Looks like some people have not started yet, and that's totally okay. And some people are just getting started or they're finished, which is exciting too. I know it's a process to update some old decks, so that also helps just to kind of know where you're at as well. Hopefully I can share some information tonight that gets you excited and make you feel more confident in updating your alt text. Again, I'll give it maybe another 30 seconds, but then we'll get going here. Again, another couple B. Added all accessibility to your decks, but hope you did them right. Hopefully you can get that answer tonight and see that as well. That's really cool. Somewhere between B and D. I love that. I have started and maybe finished, and then I have ideas. That's awesome. I love that you guys are trying to take a stab at it, and that's part of it too, is just like getting in there, playing around with it, getting used to it. Because I think what happens is you start getting in there and you realize, I got this, I can do this. So I hope that's how you feel after tonight as well. All right, so let's get going. Tonight it's just me and John. John is here as well. If you want to say hello, John.
Sorry, I was muted. I guess it's evening for everyone. Good evening, everyone. Super excited to see everyone. Um, Again, as we're going through this, as Heather's going through the alt text, feel free to ask questions. We're only going to focus on alt text tonight just for time's sake. We know there's always questions that pop up. If you do post questions that are non-alt text questions, we'll either reach out to you guys independently, um, or handle it differently. But we just want to keep it to alt text tonight. So I appreciate everyone's focus. Thanks, Heather.
No, of course. So yes, if you do have questions about other accessibility features, I will note those and make sure those get answered on those other webinars that are coming every other week from here on out. All right, so why are we doing this? Why are we here? We've had schools, states, districts reaching out to us saying that they will not be able to use Boom at all if we do not meet those accessibility requirements. That is the exact legalities that have come with it, right there. So if you want to look it up and learn more information about it, of what we are trying to be compliant with, you can learn more there. Obviously, the more schools that we have engaging with Boom, the more sales that could come for you guys. So we do want to keep our schools, our districts, our states happy so that we can best serve them. It is also what is best for all students. It is universal design for learning. So we do want to make sure that it is accessible as much as possible for as many students as possible. So, and we are here to help. I have my email in this presentation. Please reach out to me if you want to meet. I've met with 15 people already to talk about accessibility. So if you want a one-on-one time with me to go through your decks, we can definitely do that. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about some FAQs that I've been getting lately. How do I know when to opt in or opt out? And we're going to go through the actual adding alt text to your images, to your decks. And then we will have a Q&A at the end where we will answer all of those questions. So some vocabulary, just again, for anybody that may not be aware, alt text is alternative text. It's just that written description of an image so that it can be read by screen readers, for people that are visually impaired, to show what that image is showing. So it is a text that is written on the screen for them, or said aloud for them. There's also image descriptions similar to that, but it enhances that alt text again for that more complex visuals that I know lots of you have in your boom decks. So again, supporting individuals who are blind or visually impaired, we do want to make sure that they have that extra context. Other notes that you want to consider as you're creating more boom card decks is high contrast, that color variation with a black background and a white text on it. I know we've been seeing it more and more with social media captioning. So just think about that as you are creating more boom card decks, is how can I make maybe some color contrast that highlights these things a bit more in your decks. Also consider the background images that you are using. Whether you are back in the days of using those chevron patterns, or just have this cityscape in the background here from this example that I put together that was super crazy. You can't read the text on this crazy background. You can't see these pictures that are down here. So just consider your background images and how that might be distracting or taking away the value of your resource as you are creating them. So again, making sure that there's a big white box behind it so it's easier to read, or maybe changing out that background so it's a solid color. So just think about that way as you are making your decks more accessible, that it's just more visually appealing. Okay. Font readability. So again, something else to consider when creating accessible decks is making sure that your font is easy to read for a learner. Script fonts, really flowy type fonts are really hard for learners. So we do want to make sure that if you are using a font that might be a bit more scripty, that it's not taking away from the resource and the value that you are giving. Also, the size of your font. Having a larger, clear font is really helpful to make your deck accessible. So when you can enlarge your font, please do that, because again, that just supports that reading difficulty that might happen or any cognitive processing that is going on. Okay. So, question I get all the time, what do we think? Do I need to have all 3 accessibility features on all of your boom card decks? What do we think? Yes, no, just 1, 2, where are we at? I need some participation here. I see a no. Is it no? Do we agree? No. I see another no coming in. Yep. Do what you can to make sense for the product. Yes. Yes. So I think that was the confusion that I feel like I've been hearing. As many as feasible. Yes, of course. We want to have as much as possible because you can reach more learners that way. However, if it doesn't make sense to have a motor accessible deck, if it doesn't make sense to make it audio accessible, it's okay to opt out of those. We do ask that you have at least one, but are considering in the future how you can add more features to your decks. So yes, currently, no, you do not have to have all 3 accessibility features on all of your decks. All right, so let's get down to it. Actually putting in your alt text. So you might be starting to see some of these yellow screens popping up on your decks as you are scanning for compliance. That might be telling you, hey, this is not accessible. You need to make sure it's accessible before you publish it. So things like that are coming up. You will have this selectable list, and I will share my screen in a little bit and go through the actual Boom Studio so you can see what that looks like on that side. But this selectable list is going to be your best friend. It is bright red when things are missing. When you don't have that alt text there, sound can also be having an alt text to it, which we will get to on another night. But we do want to make sure that we are filling in as many of these red missing boxes as we can, so that we can make that accessible for a screen reader. Okay, so where do I find these settings? So if you are uploading an image, as this is a brown bear, we can just add that accessibility text right as you upload it. So you upload the image, it's right there, you type in brown bear, right? This might work for as many decks as you are creating, but might not work for everyone. John and I were just talking prior to this call that sometimes I need this to say, this is a brown, fuzzy, large animal. That might be the information that you need versus saying it's a brown bear and giving that direct information. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment here. But that is a great place to add it. Right when you upload that image, you can edit the details and put it right in there. The next place you will see it is if it is already in a card. So you have it in a deck. You've now decided it is here. My brown bear is there. It is still missing that text here. I can click right here and a pop-up will come in to have me add that accessibility text. I want it to say brown bear. That's exactly what'll go there. Same thing with the polar bear. I'll add polar bear there or white polar bear. However much information I want to be able to give. Okay. Now, what to type in the box, right? I think we've talked about this in past webinars that sometimes you want to give them directly, this is a penny. That's fantastic. That's all you need to write, the simplest basic level of that. However, you might want to add a bit more if you don't want to give it away. So it could be a copper colored coin with Abraham Lincoln on it. Again, that detail there doesn't fully give it away, but it helps that person know exactly what is there. Because again, if you want to say, which is the penny, you don't want to just say, that's the penny, click on that one. You don't want to give it away. So I totally understand that so far. John, anything else that you would like to add?
One of the issues I've always run into with alt text is just what Heather brought up. People want to put on alt text, but they're like, this is a comprehension activity. If I give it any clue of what that is, the kids are going to get the answer. That's where the creativity in the alt text becomes paramount. And it does get tricky at times. Like her example here, which is the penny. While you could say this one is 1 cent, this one is 10 cents, you're still kind of giving them a leaning answer towards, which one is a penny. Um, it does become tough. And when you look at, if you have a VI teacher that's really skilled, getting their input of how to handle some of these situations. And a lot of the times, quite honestly, for kids that have heavy visual deficits, putting manipulables in their hands and then scoring them through the boom cards of saying, well, here's a penny, here's a dime, feel the difference. And then saying, which one is the penny, which one is the dime, and you score it within the boom deck, is an option that a lot of visual teachers with kids with visual impairments will do. So it's just a matter of creativity. Every VI teacher I've worked with in doing this for 30 years modifies materials. Like it's very rare where they're just going to use it out of the box. All we're trying to do is for either kids that have VI issues or some kids who might have some auditory processing issues, giving them some auditory cues of what they're looking at on the screen is the goal. We're never going to hit a home run. We'll never be at 100% accuracy of how we should use alt text. It's using your best judgment, and people will still complain about it. So just coming at it from, I made my best guess based upon the lesson what I'm trying to teach. This is what we're going with to move forward. And if we get a million complaints about it, then we can, look at changing it. But, I think just getting it in there is better than having nothing there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, John. Thank you for that. Um, All right, I know we have a couple questions, but I'm going to hold them till the end just so we can make sure all the questions are in there. Again, if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. Or if you're watching the replay at this point, if you have a comment or a question, you are welcome to put it in whatever comment section you are watching or email me the question. But I do want to make sure that we get to actually going here. Okay, so if you are already in your decks, if you want to follow along and do this in yours, you are welcome to. So obviously the template card is a great spot to start if you are putting this on every single card throughout this deck. If it's the same picture on each one, I would say put in the template card. That could help save you a lot of time with it. And again, that's a double click on that. And I can say open laptop, but this isn't on every single card, so I don't want to do that. What you might want to do is put none in there or something so that when it funnels through, you know to edit it. That's something I've done in the past. You don't have to, but just think about it. All right, so if I go to this first one, I might call this, again, an open laptop. That might just be something that is just simple that I want to just say what it is. Okay. Gives it away a little bit. That's fine. But if you don't want to give it away, what do you think I should probably put instead of this open laptop? What can I call this instead? I'd love to hear from you to see kind of what you think might be here. If I don't want to say it's a laptop, can I say it's a technology device? What are we thinking of if I don't want to give away what this actually is? A rectangular electronic device with a screen. I love that. I love that. I might even add opens and closes so they don't get confused with an iPad. I don't know what kind of deck this is, but if you want to say, it's a not an iPad, but cool. I like that. Rectangular electronic device with a screen. That works. Any other thoughts? And that's okay if not. I know you're probably still typing. But I kind of like rectangular. Rectangular device.
I was going to say can be used as a weapon with some students.
No, John. I like it. Rectangular device with the screen. I love it. Yeah, again, could open and close. Again, just more detail as much as you can provide, again, without giving it away. Sometimes you might need to do that. All right. This one, we got closed door, right? Just a brown closed door. But what could I say if you don't want to say it's a brown closed door? Try to get creative here. What are we describing? What are we looking at? What could it be potentially? Taking my wait time here. Used for entering or leaving. I love that. This is what you open or close to enter a room. Yeah, if you don't want to totally give it away, how do we get into a room? We can open and close. A way to enter the room made of wood. I love that. Lots of really great ones. Right? Again, it depends on the deck that you're making. If you want it to be direct, this is a closed door, or nope, it is a way to enter a room. Right? If you're trying to label it or trying to say what it is. I like that. That's cool. Very cool. All right, same thing with this. Again, you can say open door or, how to get inside somewhere. Something like that, right? Again, being descriptive about what it is, that kind of thing. Similar with this, if I don't want to say it's a lock, what could I say? We'll do one more. Security device, a device for securing items. Yeah, I like that. Small metal item used to keep things safe. Another good one. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Closed security system, security device, right? Things like that. Love that. Um, love that. Cool. We already talked about our brown bear here, which was another really good one. Need a key to open it. Oh, that was a good one. I like that one. Yeah. Yeah. Need a key to open it, either with the locked or the open on. I like it. Gives it more of a descriptive to get there. Love that. Cool. All right. The other things I wanted to explain, we did talk about the penny. I just put the front side of a penny. That was my example here. Um, Again, I didn't want to give away Abraham Lincoln because maybe my students don't know who Abraham Lincoln is. But it's the front side of a penny or a copper colored coin, right? Again, being descriptive about what it is. Love that. I did want to share something for my friends that use PowerPoint. So this whole image here, including the numbers without these three boxes on the top, is a background image. So I've imported a background image here. Um, and so part of what I can't use alt text on here. So something you can do if you are a PowerPoint user is you can add a text box over it. I'm going to delete my text on there. I'm going to make my box bigger here. Um, and I don't like the border. I never like the borders on mine, so I always take my border off. But I can add alt text to it. So again, it is a flat image in the back. It is my background, but you can go all the way to the bottom here to these text properties where it says text accessibility text optional. So again, I have this container highlighted. I'm going to go to the bottom where it says optional, and I'm going to say what number is in the middle. And so that will pop up now, be able to be read as an alt text, even though it is a background image. So similarly, you could do that for this one blank 3. So again, you can make your decks accessible in that way. So just in case you didn't know, that is a feature that we have that you are allowed to do if you are a PowerPoint user importing a background image. And then these were just boxes I added on top, as probably many of you do, to make correct or incorrect to go on top of those. And again, I can say that's 2, 1, and 4. So the last thing I have here is again another background image. This is something that, again, I just clicked in and I said I want this to be my background image. If you are not aware of it, there is an accessibility text at the bottom of your card, all the way down here underneath your card size, and that is for your background image if you are adding alt text to it. So again, it is flattened. I can't do anything with it, but I wanted to call this the pirate ship because again, it could be a drag and drop resource that you're making. It could be add something to the flag, whatever. Maybe you want ink to be on the flag, but I want somebody to know it's a pirate ship. You can do that, and so that alt text is there if you did not know that was aware, that was where that existed. So that was something new to me as well. So all right, any other things I need to share, John? Oh, actually, one more thing before I get too far. John, think of anything. If you go back to your studio with your images, this was the other spot I wanted to show you.
I was
uh,
just going to bring that up because you didn't do it yet.
I didn't do it. Yeah. So when you upload your image and you want to find an image that you've uploaded, this is a great place before you make your decks so that you can make it accessible. So again, if I click on my brown bear, because again, I just love him today, I'm going to click edit details and I'm going to put my alt text in there as brown bear. Again, this might not work for every single deck, but this could help me in the future. So again, you go through, you click all of these, my panda bear. I'm going to click edit details and I'm going to put panda bear. Okay. And then press done. So that can save me some time in the future. So why I wanted to show you that is because in my studio, I have made a cloned copy of this deck so that you can see what I can do here. So this is the exact same deck that we just went through, except for now when I go to details and I go to play, Again, I'm going to do that. Details and play. I can import from library. So this, as the pop-up shows, auto updates that accessibility text of items on a card from the library if it exists. So this could save you some time. I did find out it only updates up to 40, so you can't update 170 at a time, but it does 40 at a time, and then you can click it again, it'll do the next 40. So again, you just need to click it a couple times if it's there, but I'm going to show you what this looks like, and this is super important because I thought this was going to save some people some time. So I'm going to click import from library. So it said 6 images were updated, but 2 were still missing accessibility text. So that is helpful for me to know, hey, I need to go back and check a couple different spots that might not have it. So when I go to my card, this open laptop is there. Open laptop is what I put as the alt text for that one. Again, this one apparently didn't make it, but that's okay. I can call that open laptop, right? But it saves me a bunch of time. Oh, this one, I thought I did this one. I guess not. Closed door. Oh, apparently none of them updated. This worked earlier. Oh, here we go. We got closed blue lock, open blue lock, because again, I might need to know the difference between the two. Here's my brown bear that I showed you that I put in there, and a sloth hanging from a branch that was also in there. The front side of a penny you already saw. So that could save you
I
some
wonder
time.
for those first ones, if you didn't have the accessibility text back in the image library added,
Mm. Hmm.
and just because you didn't think of it, like that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I might have. I thought I did it earlier and it was there, but maybe I uploaded the images and they're two different spots and I missed them. Because that could totally be it too. All right. So that's it for the studio. John, did you have anything else you wanted me to share on here?
No, I just first of all, I want to thank everyone who's here right now in getting compliant with the accessibility requirements. Um, this is an ongoing thing. If you read anything on it, every company is struggling with it right now. School districts and actually states are now requiring it. State of Maryland, state of Colorado, they want all companies to have materials that students are using to be WCAG 2.0, I believe, or 2.1 compliant. And there's just a lot of companies that are struggling. The state of Maryland, literally, we had a letter from them saying if you are not compliant, we cannot keep your products in our library for people to buy in the state. It's just going to become more of the norm. Now, given where we are in our current geopolitical, who knows what's going to be coming down the road, but this is still best practice for the kids we work with. So I thank you guys in taking the time. And if Heather, if you're ready, I can start firing off the Q&A questions for you, and we can play Stump the Chump if you want.
Yeah, I think I have a couple more things here, but then I am
Okay,
good to
so let me know
go.
when you're ready.
Yeah, so action step. So what we are expecting at this point. So the target goal for those updates is July 1. We are trying to get as many of these decks accessible as possible. Right now, we are hoping that any decks that you have, either new or revised, you have about 25 of them or more. Again, more is always better because you're going to reach more students that way. Again, more students, more sales, all the good things for you guys. So we do want to make sure that any new deck should have at least one accessibility feature to include in. And then in 2026, so again, a year in some from here, we want to make sure that publishers have 50 new decks or revised decks with at least one of accessibility feature, or 50% of your inventory, whichever is lesser. So again, we have some users who only have 100 decks, and that's totally fine. So we're asking for at least half of them to be updated as well. So again, if you're feeling confused on this, you are welcome to meet with me. My email is right there. Write it down, take a screenshot, whatever you need. But this is our target goal and expectation. Again, more the merrier. Keep adding accessibility. We want as many as possible.
And just to add to that, Heather show, I'm sorry, Michelle. Michelle's in the chatting and
You're
I
good.
just called her name. Heather showed us how to go into the details and check for compliance. that's a great way for the system just to check to see what's compliant and how you're going. It is going to be extremely rare where you will have all three of the accessibility features for visual, auditory, and motor being compliant. It will be extremely, extremely rare. Um, there are times where you may want to build a deck for kids that have motor issues. Maybe your expertise is really focusing on kids with auditory processing or visual issues. So you're going to be using alt text. Um, maybe your screen reader. I mean, there's a million different ways you can do it. We just want to give the teachers and the students variety. And that's why we're saying start now, build some new decks. If you have some decks that you can retrofit, but like I said in the previous webinar, retrofitting curricula is often hard because you didn't build it with the concept of making it accessible in the UDL and the Universal Design of Learning framework that you set when you started building it. So it's kind of like going back and after a house blows up, trying to rebuild it with everything from the blown up house. It's really hard to do. So I've been telling people if you have really complex decks and it doesn't make sense for you to make them accessible, which it may not, and that's okay, just make some decks that are accessible in your library. So we have that check mark on your store saying, yes, they have accessible materials in their library.
Yes. Yes. And even my speech paths out there that are doing audio accessible decks, and you're like, but I don't want to give it away. I want them to be able to show the action. I understand. Opt that out. Totally.
Totally. Absolutely. As a speech path, that's what I would do. But I could also see myself building comprehension decks for that speech path deck
Yep.
that might be addressing questions for switch interfaces or for whatever it might be. Or even um, having maybe I'm doing a group activity or I'm building a deck that's going to be a whole class activity or one-on-one, however I want to use it, but maybe I'll have 2 pages of comprehension questions. One of them that has accessibility built in it. Maybe it's a scanning array for kids with a Switch user. Mark that on the page that this is for scanners. If the teacher doesn't need it, they can skip it, they can hide it, they can just buzz right through it and it won't matter. The fact that we put that accessibility into that one page is huge for a lot of kids. So building their sense of agency is really, really important.
Yes, totally. And yes, this will be put on YouTube within the next couple days here so that you can watch this again if you have other questions or just want to slow it down and look through the process a bit more. All
All right,
right,
ready for some questions?
let's do it.
All right, from Michelle, lover. Many of my decks are bilingual. How should I approach alt text for Spanish words?
Yeah, go for it. If that's your audience and that's what you're going for, I would say put it in.
If the deck so if your goal is that to have the kids, it could go 2 ways, right? Right, Michelle? If they're bilingual and you want to support both languages, you could have the alt text be in English and what they're seeing is in Spanish, vice versa. If
Yep.
it's pure Spanish, just have it be pure Spanish. Um, you can really mix and match. There is no right or wrong answer for this. It depends upon how you foresee the kids using the materials.
Yep. Michelle, I'm loving all these questions. For resources tagged articulation, is it appropriate to list or to only list the word in alt text rather than the description? John, I'm going to you for that one.
Yeah, here's the tough part with alt text and artic, right? Um, you're giving away the answer. There's really no way around it because you have to say it what it is, what they're looking at. For the speechies in the room, if it's a true artic deck you're working with, I wouldn't add alt text to the majority of it because it's just going to be complex. It's not what we're going for. You want them to hear that output, give them the output. Like, don't worry about, if it's a visual thing. If you're going for a correction of an air patterning, you want them to hear the output. So I would have it be repeatable as many times as possible.
Yep, totally agree. One of the issues with a white background is the rules against commercial use of certain clip art purchased. Can Boom somehow protect the people from stealing clip art?
No, we can't. Honestly, because if you so there's the Fair Use Act where if you import an image and you put it into your deck and it's a commercially available image, um, anyone can right click and copy that image and save it to their desktop. There's really no way to stop them from doing that. It's a it's an ongoing issue. The reason they have the Fair Use Act is if you're using an image to work with kids in the educational community, the Fair Use Act kicks in and saying, hey, this one image, like let's say the McDonald's Golden Arches is iconic. There's only one way to convey that. Even if you get a line drawing of it that's yellow, it's still the Golden Arches. It's still under the McDonald's Corporation copyright. But the Fair Use Act says we're using that for helping students learn, and it falls within that act.
For those of us with a lot of decks, is it wiser to go back and add alt text or create new decks and delete old ones? So I would say don't delete old ones. Keep those. I would say, yes, it is wiser to continue to add and build as now you are thinking about how can I use alt text in my resources. That is the way you should go. And yes, I know it takes a lot of time to go back and add all those alt text to it. I did it. I know it. But when you can, I would say, yes, go back and do what you can, but we are looking forward as you are building new.
And to add to that, from a marketing standpoint, marketing out that you now have accessible decks in your Boom library. Schools are asking for it. The large districts I've been working with these past 6 months, um, the accessibility features come up 100% of the time. So big districts like, special school districts of St. Louis, Miami, Gwinnett, Dallas, Houston. One of the first questions I get asked is how much of your content is accessible? The more that we can say is accessible, the more that you guys are pushing out through Facebook and other third-party sites, um, the better it's going to be. I wouldn't delete any old decks because a lot of those decks are still really, really, really strong, but creating from scratch and even if you have a great old deck, can you take that same concept of that deck and make it more accessible? Probably. And then I would just mark it, you know, um, letter identification accessible or something like that in the title.
Yep. I'm going to actually go to one of the questions at the bottom because it relates to a question we already did. Can you please give an example of your earlier response to Michelle's question about using alt text for articulation? I didn't understand. Can you explain that a little bit more, John?
Yeah, so if I'm working with a deck and let's say I'm doing a W for R substitution, I'm trying to get a student to eliminate their W for R. Um, if they're going through and the system is telling them every time what they're looking at, or it's cueing them to look at that, I want that stimuli. So if I want them to say rabbit, 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 I'm not going to say fuzzy white animal. I want it to say rabbit. So for the speech paths, a lot of speech paths won't use alt text because you want them to hear the stimuli that they're working on, unless it's a comprehension question. But for our tick and arrow missions and things like that, you want them to hear that. So um, confusing the student by saying, fuzzy white rat or fuzzy white animal, fuzzy brown animal that lives in the woods, um, you know, animal that barks. Um, I would just when you're thinking of the deck, what is the goal of the deck? If the goal of the deck is to remediate their articulation, you want to focus on that. If it's a comprehension, then you want to change that, and you do want to have the alt text be different.
Yep. When I read or when I type a word directly onto the card, the alt text reads the word, but it gives it away, right? We talked about that. I can't edit the alt text on the right side menu. Is there any way to edit it? So this is talking about text, not an image. It's been very time consuming in making those edits. Not sure I have an answer for that other than you
Edit the
might
alt
be able to add a box over it if that's not what you wanted, right? If you're typing directly on the card, it's going to, yes, read it out loud. And so what happens is that makes it accessible in audio form for a person that needs it. So typically that's for a direction or things like that. Maybe I'm not understanding it correctly. So Linda, if you have further thoughts on
I
that.
think it's the PNG for letters and words, and it's reading and Linda, if I'm wrong, I'm assuming the PNG might have like, you know, think of like if you just haphazardly save something to your desktop and it's like 14725.png and you don't want it to read that embedded alt text that's in that PNG, you would have to put an alt text on top of it and have it read that one. And if you can put none on an alt text image and the screen reader will skip it. If you
Yeah.
do that, you can also apply another one on top of it.
Yeah, Linda's asking about when she types a word. It goes on, and I
Yeah,
understand.
I'm not 100% sure I'm getting the question. So,
Yeah.
Linda, if you want to expound on that down and we'll come back to it.
Yep.
All right, go to the
Um,
next one, Heather.
yep. Does the order or sequence matter of the accessibility selectable list? Yes. I think ultimately we will get to that question when we do more Z order things, but yes, you want to try to make it as fluid as possible when you have your um, directions, your answer choices, things like that. So yes, you do want to make sure that is possible in that selectable
Yeah,
list.
you want to follow the standard left to right, top to bottom,
Mhm.
for kids that either need it for visual or for kids that may need it for auditory processing, because that's how they're going to be looking for the information.
Yep.
That goes back to the universal design of make sure your layout, if you're really focusing on having the student follow that, you can't have it bouncing all over the screen because it's really hard for the kids to follow that. So you really want the layout to be right.
Yep. What happens if we upload a PowerPoint background image with multiple images, which creates a scene? How much description is needed? As much as needed for the deck. So if you need to describe what that background is, you can. Otherwise, like John said, if it doesn't pertain to that deck and make it meaningful for that learning environment, then you put none. So I understand if you're going to try to like build a scene of things, if that background doesn't add value to the resource, I would say put none. All right, back to the Spanish question. If she puts a Spanish word, thank you, Michelle, for coming back to this. Will the alt text read it aloud in English or Spanish?
Whatever you type in, Michelle. So however you enter the alt text, it's going to read it back. With some words, you do have to we have to pull our phonetical spelling to fix it. But yeah, you're going to want to put it in whatever language you want it coming out as. So you're asking, will it translate from English to Spanish, Spanish to English? No, it's going to read whatever you type in that box.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, last one currently, and then we're gonna circle back to Linda. If you go to an image in your library and add alt text, will it automatically updates the decks you've already created? No. To this point, that is not how that works. But again, if you've added that alt text, potentially you can go back and try that image or that import button that hopefully will have that work.
And then Katie, I'm just going to say this again. If you have decks that are, for most of us, it's going to be easier to create new decks going forward, adding accessibility than
Yes.
it is retrofitting it because it's just some of our decks just don't lend themselves to going back and fixing without changing layout, without changing design, which is really time consuming. Sometimes it's easier to say, we're starting over, we're going to kick it off, and I'm just going to build some new content. And that's part of Heather's job right now is we are finding content areas that we have holes in that we're going to be asking publishers, say, hey, we're looking for content for this area or this age group or this specialty. So be on the lookout in the next couple of weeks of some emails going out saying we're actually looking for content that schools are asking us for in specific content areas.
Yep. Yep. I saw Linda put a comment in the chat actually. So Linda's been putting a text box over the PNG, so she was talking about PNGs, but can't do that when I type directly onto the card. Not being able to edit that type word makes it a lot more work for her, in order to create that PNG herself.
Oh, yeah, it would.
Yep.
That's kind of the answer. You're correct.
Yes. Yes. So Apologize for that, Linda. All right, any final questions? Otherwise, we're gonna wrap it
There
up
was one
here.
question I saw earlier, and I don't know where I saw it, but someone asked if we were going to be adding drag and drop capabilities into being able to drag accessibility
Mm,
features on. Um, and Heather, I'm kind of flying blind on that one. I don't remember any conversations around that.
We are working on that. There is a spec in the process of being updated to make more drag and drop accessible resources.
All right, we are at my time 6:45. Are there any other questions before we let you guys go and start hanging out with your families or opening a bottle of wine? Speak now.
All right. Well, thank you all. Like I said, please email me if you have any other questions, or you're just feeling super overwhelmed or confused. I'm happy to meet with anybody, to go through your specific decks, and we can walk through every one that you want. And I can tell you where to add accessibility and where you gotta pause and say, nope, just opt it out. So have a great night, everyone. Thank you for spending this last 45 minutes with us.
Thanks, guys. Is this, it's still